Crystal Oculi. I'm the Chief Financial Strategist here at Confidence Wealth. And every week I try to bring a topic that's talked about in many of my meetings and see how that can relate and help you. So one of the biggest things that I noticed the last week has been coming up over and over again, and maybe it's just been that some of the meetings I've had, they're going through that, whether it's with their parents or whatever it may be, has been long-term care. So long-term care means the care that you need during the later years when you cannot do 2 out of 6 daily activities. You know, like elder care, when at that point you may need a nurse to come home, take care of you, or you may need to go to assisted living or nursing facility. So it is a topic that no one likes and most people don't like to actually talk about or address, or everybody makes a joke out of. Well, put me on a wheelchair and roll me down the hill. And unfortunately, it's not as simple as that. When you don't plan that in your family, it could have catastrophic effect on the assets as well as the emotional well-being of your loved ones. So it is really important to sit and address it. So long-term care planning doesn't necessarily mean you need insurance. For some families, it may actually be that they need insurance, but not for everyone. For some people, it is a matter of carving out assets dedicated to that, or coming up with a plan of strategy at the time. Example, you may have several rental properties. Maybe you dedicate a particular one that gets sold out at that time. But really the idea is you and your loved ones need to make a decision of when the time comes that, God forbid, you need long-term care. What kind of long-term care do you want? Are you planning on staying home? And if you're planning on staying home, what level you have to be able to stay home? Are you willing to, at a certain level, that if it's at that level where, example, let's just say, God forbid, it's dementia and you don't remember anything, would it make more sense at that point to go nursing facility? So these are things that I know are not fun, but successful families that have a great strategy in place really think about all these things. It doesn't mean it has to happen to you. It just means let's be smart and have a plan in place. For example, when you drive your car, you make sure your car is in good condition, the brakes are okay and all of that, not because you want to get in an accident, it's because you want to prevent that accident. So thinking about long-term care could be exactly the same thing as well. What I want you to just look at, set up aside, for example, let me just give you an easy way of doing it. Set up a time. If you're married, you do it with your spouse. If you're not married, do it maybe with your daughter, or if you don't have children, do it with whoever your trustee or your trusted person that you brainstorm with. And don't talk about it like it's you. You can even take yourself out of it and just say, hey, if there are people in this situation, what would I think is logical? And sometimes that is when you come up with the best plan, because when you're not thinking about yourself, think if this was your neighbor. Think if this was one of your good friends. What advice would you give them? And where do you see pros and cons of staying at home versus not staying at home? What sort of care would go along with it? What do you think it will cost? And if you don't know what it will cost, then this is the reason why you actually want to do your homework on it. So example, if you're a current client, you can easily get that information. You've got it multiple times in some of the meetings you've had, and you can get together with one of your team members and they can easily tell you what the expectation of the cost is. And then some of it would be simply even Googling, what is the cost of long-term care? How much does it cost if you go to a nursing facility and things like that? Sometimes I say don't do too much Googling because it can just open up a whole can of worms in advertising, and it's really making sure you understand what it is. I do have a long-term care webinar that I did that you can ask to watch. So you can just request it. You can post it here for me. You can email me at askcrystal@icwm.com or askcrystal@confidencewealth.com, and we'll be happy to send it to you. But there is definitely an average cost, and every state is going to be different. But it also matters what kind of care you're looking to get. And I know I'm going deeper into this in terms of the way I want you to think. And it's more, I want you to think of it as psychological first before you get to the financial aspect, because first is addressing that purpose, that want, how do you want to be taken care of? That's most important. Then you go to the cost value of what is it going to cost me? And then we can run the numbers to see, does it make sense to self-fund? Does it make sense you do some sort of a co-insurance, something? Everyone is different. Maybe it's just coming up with a strategy of downsizing at some point if that need occurs. But what it is important, and is of utter importance to your family and their well-being, as I mean emotionally and psychologically, is that these decisions are done in advance, not the time of. I'll give you an example. I watched my family go through such a hardship, seeing my grandfather have a stroke and for almost 15 years of his life be a vegetable, and have so many family members that had to, not just financially, but emotionally being there and being able to take care of him and help my grandmother. And it was really, really tough. These are things no one thinks about. Can this occur? And it did. Now, that was extreme example. Then I remember my mom's mom, my grandmother, who lived very healthy up until almost, it was in her early 90s, when then she got pneumonia, and that caused her to never recover. And then she had about a couple of years worth of long-term care needs. And it was nice that in her situation, why it was a little bit easier, because she was always in communication with my parents that if I end up needing care, I prefer to be at a facility. She just did. She wanted to have lots of people around. She wanted a nurse to always watch out for her. She wanted to ring that bell. So there's always someone there. It was easier for her to be at a facility than it was to be at home. She had not shared that, most likely we would have wanted her to stay at home, because we would have thought that's what she wanted. So you see how hard and tough that can make it, where you have to come up with decisions that you don't know what your loved one would have wanted. My grandfather, I don't know what he wanted. Honestly, none of us knows what he wanted. What if his wishes was that he didn't want to be at home? What if his wishes was that he would have wanted my grandmother not to give up all of her life taking care of him? Maybe he would have been okay going to a facility. We never knew that, and really that made that whole situation made it very difficult, and everyone agreed that they don't want to, have their father go to a facility, and they took care of him at home. Me watching from outside as a grandchild, I don't know why that was a good thing. I honestly don't think that was a good thing. I think it would have been a lot better on the family if he was at a facility and everyone would have visited. I would have loved my grandmother to have a life. 15 years of her life she dedicated to being a nurse. And that was extremely difficult. Whether she had help or not didn't really change anything. Her life was all revolving around taking care of someone who we don't even know, did he know if we were there? Honestly, no one ever knew that. And it's really heartbreaking, because I know it can make it very difficult, and the pressure on the family and the stress was incredible. Now, it would have made it a lot easier if we knew what my grandfather wanted, if something like that happened. So I think it's always good to talk about that. I know me personally, I put that in even my trust. How do I want to be taken care of? Something happened, this degree, this degree, this degree. I think it really helps my family make better choices, makes my husband make better choices for me, and not have that be a burden. That decision is really important. Once the decision is done of how I want to be taken care of, then it makes it easier to go back and look at everything financially. What can we do financially to make sure that the state is protected, that your assets are protected, but yet you're getting the needs and the care that you want? So with that said, I know it's not a fun topic, but I wanted to make sure that you again, this month being a Valentine month, we look at it that way. It's all about heart, about love, taking care of yourself, taking care of your family. So look at it as one of the best gifts you can give your family by having a right plan in place. Hopefully this helped you. If you need any help figuring out where to go, that's what we're here for. Feel free to reach out to your team if you're current clients, and if you're not a current client, maybe you're friends and family of our clients, feel free to reach out for us, and maybe we can point you to the right direction have a discovery session and see where that leads for you. That's it at this end. Looking forward to seeing you at one of our webinars soon. If there's a subject you want me to talk about, please go ahead and post it here and I'll be happy to discuss it next week. Have a great one.